Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the webinar. We're letting all the people in. We've got about 1,100 people registered for this webinar, so it's going to be a biggie. We're going to ask you please to just kind of forgive us that we are actually going to mute you and turn your cameras off because we don't want to see who you are. No, we just want to make sure we preserve the bandwidth. If you would, however, if you move your mouse and you look down at the bottom of your screen, there's a green share screen button. And if you click to the right or the left of it, it looks like a little message bubble. It says chat. If you click on your chat, it will open up and you can please tell us who you are and where you're from. We love you to type in and tell us where you're from. So I see that a lot of people are entering from the waiting room. There's a lot of people in line to get on, so we've got a few of you. So who's ever in, feel free to move your mouse, click on the chat button, and type something in, tell us who you are and where you're from. So it seems like it's slowing down for the people entering. I think we're doing pretty well. Oh, there we go. I've got people from Mount Prospect, Illinois, from Arkansas, California, Florida, Arizona, Maryland, Rhode Island, Iowa, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Georgia. Georgia opened up today. I'm going to fly down there and get a manicure. Okay, Missouri, Mississippi. We've got people from Canada, people from Quebec, Tennessee, California, Virginia, North Carolina, another Canadian from Alberta. We love Canadians. We're big, Blair and I at least are very big hockey fans, so this is fun. Emma has no clue what hockey really means. Again, we've got a lot of people coming in. Please know, I do apologize, but we're muting all of you and we're turning your cameras off to preserve the bandwidth, so please forgive us with that. But do open your chat box. Be sure to indicate, ask us questions. We really want to hear what you have to say. I'm going to start. My name is Sara Kooperman. I'm the CEO of SCW Fitness, and I'm very pleased to host this webinar on reopening our facilities. And today I have Adam Buddhacavalli helping me with the webinar, as well as our creative director, Sean Sunigan. Couldn't do it without them. Thank you, gentlemen. We have Chris Stevenson who's joining us, and Chris is an international speaker who regularly presents at every webinar, and he's been in fitness events and business events around the world presenting. He's a wonderful consultant. Blair McHaney is currently president of MXM, a Medallia partner, and he really specializes in member experience for the fitness industry, and he's joining us as well today. Emma Berry is a global fitness authority who advises the innovative edge of fitness, which includes boutiques, studios, budget clubs, digital workouts, and fit tech startups. She's very well known in Europe and very renowned in California. So I have these wonderful people on the panel, and we're just thrilled. I'm thrilled to have you all here. The first thing I wanted to ask you guys is, how are we going to integrate social distancing into our clubs? What measurements, and I don't just mean 6-foot measurements, but what measurements are we going to use? So I'm going to start with you, Blair.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things to look at, and it's important to be very mindful of being able to do a member journey map and do that with new eyes, because members are going to be coming in fearful of certain things. And what the mom with the infant coming through the doors for the first time whenever your kids clubs get to reopen, whatever that journey is going to look very different than the 20-year-old who comes in and is ready to do heavy leg day or something. But it's critical to also think of where your choke points are, like where You know, is it at check-in? What happens if I have 5 people coming in? Purchasing membership, but think of the spaces differently. The spaces that you want people moving through, and then there's spaces where people will be standing still in group fitness, cycling. And I think you can have a different treatment for each of those spaces. I will say that I think the early data that we see from clubs that are opening is that members are being extremely respectful in this process so far, early out of Georgia.
Very good, thank you.
I'll probably jump in there, Sarah. Yes, I'll extend on the Group X side of things. So got many clients around the world, from China through to Europe, some in America and also Europe. So people are taking a different approach. Some of it is limiting occupancy already. So you might have to book to go to the club. You certainly have to book to get into a class. And there might be, for example, half or even less than half spaces in class, because by the time you bring in the 1.5 meters or the 6 feet or even more than that, I know in some countries they're even pushing 2 meters, which is even further. Some are marking out the room, so there might be the little logo or a little sticker. Some are creating grids. Some are presetting the room with equipment. Some are suggesting you bring your own equipment. Like, there's many iterations of the distancing. We're certainly seeing where equipment's evolved. Some people are spreading the equipment into other areas of the club and perhaps using screens if there's classes. Some are transitioning to basketball courts, outdoor onto tennis courts. All of these things are being looked at really according to their facility. So these are a lot of cool things that are happening. We're also looking at phased approaches. So very rarely do people open with group exercise, even if it's virtual. They're sort of opening the gym area, maybe not the wet area, maybe not the kids club, and they're sort of opening because they have enough issues to think about in some of these areas, and then they're slowly unlocking the club. So that's some of the things that we're seeing around the world.
Wonderful. Chris?
And I think there's the physical things that we do to create it by moving equipment, you know, the common sense stuff, taking some cardio out of service so that people are, like, we're creating an environment where they have to simply be further apart. One thing we had talked about a little bit before this webinar is also sales. And, you know, when you have prospects coming in, it may be a time where for this initial period, you're making people book appointments. So you don't have a bunch of walk-in traffic coming in. You can control when they come and you stagger those appointments. And one other thing to remember is, I think we'll hit it about 75% right with all of the best practices, with all of the stuff that we'll talk about today. So the important part is to know there still will be some unknown. So to pay attention, like Blair said, you know, listen to your customers, do the surveying, get that input so that you can make changes on the fly and the adjustments that you need to do to make sure that everybody feels comfortable.
I remember before we got on this call, I think it was you, Blair, that mentioned, think of a grocery store. Think about how they've developed those aisles so they're wide enough for people to walk both ways, so carts don't bump into each other. Thinking about the fluidity of the facility. And I also think taking it from grocery stores, open up early so that our individuals that are 60 plus might be more comfortable and with each other just for an hour, making sure people wear the masks and the gloves and maintain their distance. Blair, could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so, and remember, grocery stores are designed to keep people moving. You know, they have one-way aisles, they have an indoor and an outdoor. If you have 2 doors going into your facility, so one of our clubs, which I didn't mention, I'm also a club owner, have been for going on 40 years now. One of our clubs does have 2 different doors. And so one will be an indoor, the other will be an outdoor. That's another way to kind of maintain that distance. But grocery stores have everybody moving. They want everybody to move all the time, move through the aisles, move out the door, get more people to come in. So that you can apply those principles to the areas where you need to keep people moving, and be very thoughtful about that whole member journey. So, you know, and you start your member journey from the parking lot, by the way. And so having hand sanitization outside before they touch the door, you know, the toe pulls, the automatic doors, the forearm pulls, the nanoseptic technology on the handles of the doors, and be thinking about all of that along with the social distancing as you're looking at the potential choke points. And it is, you know, using zip ties on lockers so that, 6 lockers are blocked and then one's open. Fewer benches. I mean, there's social distancing, which I think somebody brought this up the other day on a call. We're referring to it now as physical distancing, not social distancing. Yeah, I love that. I think that seems way more appropriate. So yeah, but look at the concepts people are doing, where they're blowing it, where customers are scared, apply it. And it will be, your younger customers will care a lot less about it than your older customers.
Sarah, I'm seeing a bunch of questions come up around masks, etc. I think that's an area that you need to look to your local authorities and also to your COVID teams. So in China, for example, both were wearing masks, staff and members, for example. They were also doing temperature checks, those sorts of things. So that's going to come down, I think, to regional and what your membership and what your team is comfortable to do. So that would be my answer on that. The guys might have some other things to add. And then I also saw another question on the outdoor workouts. So lots of people, where there's space or where there's all that, they're literally taking it outside and running it like an event. So as long as you've got sound and all of those usual basics, you're making the rules here. You just do what's right for your people, but these are all practices that are happening. And just regarding the wayfinding, I'm seeing a lot of clubs are actually putting stickers on the floor with arrows. Stay on this side, stay on that side, using different doors, exactly as you mentioned before, Blair. So just some more things I'm seeing.
And the masks and the gloves. And I was talking about this actually to Ann Gilbert. We were chatting about the other day. And masks and gloves, if you're wearing a mask, you can't see who people are. So Ann is using name tags. So everybody can wear their first, use a name tag at the door. That helps build that community again. And the temperature checks. Now, what's interesting is, unfortunately, by the time you get a temperature, you've already, for 5 days, been able to spread this disease. So a lot of clubs are beginning to possibly get away with that. What do you think about also the timing of sessions? Meaning, are they 15 minutes apart? How do we do the protocols for the ins and the outs of the doors?
Absolutely. Well, we've, for example, most of the people I work with have extended to either a 15-minute in between or even a 30-minute where there's equipment incorporated. They're deciding whether the members put the equipment back or whether the staff do it and sanitize there and then. So these are all going to come down to, we've also got people changing their schedules. Any programming that moves a million miles might have to be on the spot, or they might just do their yoga and their pump and restrike some of their HIIT training so that it's on the spot. So people are thinking quite deeply about the programming as well. But they're definitely spacing out. Some people are having intermissions in the day where there might be 3 deep cleans throughout the day, as well as the usual sanitizing of equipment between classes. Schedules are limited, classes might be slightly shorter. So I'm seeing people completely doing open heart surgery on their schedules right now. Other people are just keeping the same schedule but easing it out a little bit and shortening a little bit. But there's definitely more time in between to clean.
And Chris?
That's actually a question for Emma. Do you think limiting and a reservation system for people checking into class and limiting the participants, do you ever think there'll be a time where you have to limit how many classes a member can take to ensure that every member, since you got to show up for a class, gets involved in some sort of class?
Yeah, to be honest, this is something that we have to consider very deeply, I think, because there has to be a fairness. The moment I can't use the club that I'm paying for the services, I start questioning my membership. And we were talking before the call around, at some point, this has got to go back to price. So if I talk to the boutiques, for example, they have a slight advantage. For a start, you book a bike. I know that I have bike number 7, okay? It's got my name on it. I bought that and I've paid for it. Most clubs, or many clubs that I speak to, don't have that complexity in their booking system. You literally go to the club, go in the turnstile, they record that, and then who knows? So there's lots of people who they perhaps don't even have the app on their phone of how to book a class. So that's the first thing. Now what the boutiques are doing is some of them are even thinking, do we say, you can come Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, because if there's only like 15, 10, 20 bikes or whatever it is you're doing, it's going to get very unfair. So yes, there's all of that being thought about. So I think you've got to have some sort of booking system. You can't just wonder. It's going to be slow to start off with. If you look at China and other places that are opening up, it's a little bit slow to start, but then there's going to be people wanting to come back. They're just being driven crazy by their kids and being home, and all. But yes, you have to measure it, and you've got to have your staff right on point as well. Most people I'm dealing with also are having people sign a waiver, because you don't want your people sort of, well, I don't respect the social distancing thing, and I don't actually buy into it. You've got people like that as well, and if you're trying to police it in your club to keep the authorities happy and to keep a safe space, all of these issues have to be considered. Yeah.
So you have to be more rigid with your waivers of liability. We had a wonderful question here. Do you require people to bring your own mats? And that's something that's been seen for quite some time now. If you go and you look at like the bacteria that grows on a yoga mat, it's just horrible. Chris, I think we were on a webinar together before, and you made a wonderful suggestion about a way for a facility to make ancillary revenue by branding and selling their own equipment.
Yeah, no, and I think that's going to be important for especially the things that are just really hard to guarantee that you've sanitized or disinfected, things like the mini bands and yoga mats and all of those type of things. It's a good time to partner with some of your vendors and put kits that you can sell to members. So it's a great form of ancillary revenue. Plus, members can make sure their own things are clean. They'll feel safer because they're bringing it from their homes. I think it's a great opportunity.
That's wonderful. How do you think, I mean, with the filling of the classes, this almost fits directly into my next question, is how are we going to integrate social media and virtual classes into our live club memberships? And this is one way that we would be able to adapt the sense of overcrowding for certain times of the day, like 9:30 and 5:30, that is there a way we can stream our classes? What is the liability surrounding the music usage, etc.? Emma, I see you nodding. Please share.
Yeah, so first thing, I just wanted to pick up, there's been a whole barrage of email, of texts in here around pricing. So a lot of people are saying, how do we operationally make this work with less classes, more spacing, all of that stuff? And we were talking about that before. It's a very real issue. So you've got a couple of things happening. We're able to provide less service, so less people can get through doing the things. And then we've also got presumably more cleaning and more of those things. So operationally, we're going to have to work out what that's doing to our budgets. So there has been some discussion around, you know, do we have to raise prices in order to, you know, to remain in business, those sorts of things. Certainly some of the boutiques are looking at that. Just to answer that question. So I think, you know, you might come back to that later, Sarah, but it's a really important question. We don't know, but at the end of the day, we all have to change our businesses to make it work. Otherwise, we have no business. So I would expect there's going to be some, you know, some fluidity in pricing. We're maybe going to open up our schedules longer. I tell you what, not all of us are going to want to go back to work full time. So we might end up being more fluid in our lives, which means maybe our class schedules can be more than 6 o'clock in the morning, lunchtime, and 5 o'clock at night. So I think all of that change, I think is going to come, I think.
And Blair, you seem to be the king of surveys and creating a customer experience. Can you give us some insight in ways that we can figure out possible scheduling difficulties or bottlenecking or pricing issues?
Yeah, I want to circle back to a couple of things here, because and we are all about feedback and what we call customer signals. Some of that comes in the form of surveys. And by the way, I've never seen anybody design their own survey that was worth a damn. I'll just tell you, people ask so many of the wrong questions and don't really understand what they're trying to flesh out. So we saw customer signals in January and February already coming in around COVID-19 and the fears there, as did Medallia. Medallia is doing that at an enterprise level, so we're looking at millions of pieces of feedback. So that's what we did, is we designed a specific survey system. And so it's one thing to do a survey, you guys, and get those numbers. It's quite another to have the analytics to understand how to take action on that information. And so frequently we see people create a bunch of information that is not actionable. And so that's one topic. I will tell you the biggest noise coming through from member feedback when we ask the very final question, when thinking about coming back into our club after we reopen, what is most important to you? And then we use text analytics and artificial intelligence to sort through topics around that. And there are some key things that everybody's going to have to pay attention to. You know, social distancing is certainly one of them. I'm going to stop saying that. I'm going to say physical distancing from now on. And getting back to piling on what Emma was saying, you can't look at this without sort of addressing economic theory. And there's a few, and the most basic is, right, supply and demand. Okay, I used to have 40 people in this class. I can now only have 20. So what happened to those other 20? Assuming, now I'm making some linear assumptions here about, you know, attendance, you know, ramping up. What happens to the other 20? How many people am I pissing off and actually creating new demand out here? So that creates new demand. And where's that demand going to be met? That circles right back to potentially what you have for your digital play to serve those classes. But it also, you know, to Emma's point, you can't have that conversation without some point saying, maybe these are fee. I don't know if this is the answer. I'm not saying this is prescriptive. Maybe they're fee-based. How do we create fairness in people getting to the classes? Well, SoulCycle charges $2,000 a year for you to be able to schedule 24 hours ahead of anybody else. So I want you to think about what, you know, I love Clayton Christensen's jobs to be done theory. Think about the job that the customer's actually trying to get done, right? So why would somebody pay that much money to schedule early? It takes away a lot of anxiety as to whether it's you know, we think about people wanting to do a class, but think more deeply about a scheduling system that actually removes anxiety for people. Now think about what are the other ways we can remove anxiety? And so if I have to limit classes and maybe do more of them to serve the same amount of people, you know, I mean, I'm gonna throw out a theoretical question out there. Supposing that this idea of social distancing and people that want to be packed in continues. And suppose that the idea that people like to get together continues, because we like to get together. That's what people do. Say you have 4,000 members, and in 6 months you're going to have 2,000. Well, now, do you raise your price then? This theoretical question, because I think it's important to think about theoretical frameworks so that you can back into practical decisions. Or would it be better to right out of the gate double your price and cut your membership in half? I don't know. I'm just saying, theoretically, you should be asking difficult questions that will allow you to apply different principles in abstract ways to the different situations that you're in. I think that's critical for you to remain flexible.
That's absolutely correct. And what I also find very interesting in looking at the chat, people are asking, how do I deal with my staff? How do I prepare my staff? What type of safety considerations do I have to make? What type of requirements do I make of them? And I think asking all these questions, we can answer them, but unless we live in a certain urban area, a certain rural area, what is the demographic of my suburb versus downtown Chicago? You know, asking your staff, incorporating your staff into these type of questions is going to be key, because if you make a decision going one way or the other on a particular issue, you can then pivot and go the other way, but it's been a communal decision, and hopefully your staff will support you and provide you insight. I've never seen a situation more in our society where group fitness has been valued like it has been now.
I got a pile. Can I pile on that for a minute? We're seeing, I'm sorry, we have, in a few short weeks, we have over 95,000 pieces of member feedback from everywhere. And what we're learning from that is critical. And that last thing, what's most important to you? You can't believe the number of people that are saying to get back to my class. And they're saying that before they say it. Now, I will tell you that the biggest single most important to people, you want to know the very biggest, noisiest thing that's most important to people, is that those other damn members are cleaning equipment. That is the noisiest thing. I'll frame it this way. From here on, when you're in your clubs, when a member sees another member get off of a piece of equipment and not clean it, They feel as though they're witnessing somebody shoplifting or breaking into a car. They're watching bad citizenship, and they don't like it. Moreover, if your teams aren't then correcting that behavior, it's as though they're watching a policeman watch bad citizenship, and they're not doing anything about it. The trick is,
I'm going to ask Chris, please jump in here. Jump in here, please.
Well, so to take a step backwards really quickly, I think the one thing back to sort of the virtual classes and that sort of thing, I think what this situation has done is made it normal. I think prior to COVID, people would have been like, virtual class, really a class via Zoom? But now it's given it that opportunity where like, this is not so bad. And I may still prefer, because I agree with Blair, I think people want to get back in their classes, the real class, and Emma, the class people want their classes, but it is going to be a viable other option that people, I think, will now embrace more than ever. And I think while studios are closed or not quite fully open or Group X is still shut down, this is a great time to get testimonials that you can use to then market while the people are having fun. So really reach out to the people that are doing it and having fun. But now back to what Blair was saying about I love that analogy, the police officer watching a crime and not doing anything. The reason staff often don't enforce policies is because it sucks, right? The last thing they want to do is go up to a member and be like, you can't do that. So I think giving them really good training on how to do that. So, tell your staff, hey, listen, here's what our expectations are. You do have to monitor members. I would straight up use the policeman analogy because that kind of paints a good picture on how bad it is if they don't. But then say, listen, don't simply go up and be like, hey, 6 feet away from that other member. You can't do that. Go up, introduce yourself and your role. And then I'm a big believer in letting the member off the hook by saying, hey, I'm not sure that you were aware, or you probably don't realize this, even though you know that the member completely realizes it. But they feel less attacked if you say, I'm sure you had no idea, but then you tell them what the expectation is. And then after that, the why, right? And this is the expectation because it affects other members' health, safety, and well-being, right? And then you say, so you can do these other things, but you just can't do that here. And then at the end, thank them. For providing those sort of training scripts are going to empower the staff to, I think, do that better rather than just saying, hey, make sure you enforce all this stuff.
Yeah, we're calling it compliance ambassador training. It's going to include videos. It's going to include role playing, and it will also include small case studies is what we're calling it. So the small case study is, okay, you're over here and you see one member trying to correct another member, which by the way, beware of that, members policing other members, because now you're compliance ambassador. Your challenge is we know that the two of the biggest drivers of customer loyalty for all the data for 7 years, staff friendliness, club cleanliness. Okay, your job is to go out and coach behavior while improving your staff friendliness. You can't let this do violence to staff friendliness. And that's why you create the right name. For us, we're calling it compliance ambassador. And then once you bring all your teams in and train, so somebody was asking the question about bringing teams in. A friend of mine brought this up on a webinar earlier today, and we're going to be doing this. We're going to bring all of our staff in for 1 week without members before we open, to run the club without members, to role play, to go through the compliance ambassador training. But then if you're going to make that part of your culture, remember, don't just train the people that are in there. You've got to pick that up and embed it in your new employee onboarding. Because who should go through that training? Everybody should be dragged through that.
People are also requiring that they upgrade their staff manuals, and they provide memos that then are addendums to the staff manuals. I'm a lawyer by training, and we're getting a lot of questions about music. If you are going to take your group exercise classes and film them, you can film them on a simple iPod or iPad. And if you have the music and the microphone near each other, they can hear both the music and the microphone. You don't have to invest in expensive equipment. But if you're streaming your classes, everything seems to be covered by ASCAP and BMI licenses if your facility is covered, and CSPAC. So the people are asking also about the music that clubs are using now and streaming some classes right now for the facilities, just before we're getting open. Like, what do we do like before? So if you're streaming live classes, you can use the music, it's perfectly fine. But if you're going to record it and then you're going to play it later, or you're going to post it on your Facebook page. If it's recorded, that's when, if you use original artists, it's going to be X'd out and it's going to be silent. So there are music companies like, I believe, Yes Music and Power Music have supplied kind of generic background music if you're going to record it, and that's okay. Live stream, you know, it's a free for all. But once you post it up on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn, it's seen as a recording, and you can only use these kind of generic, gross music. It's not that gross, not that bad, really. I didn't just say that. But think about the music, and I love the idea of, if you can't overcrowd your group fitness classes. So, Chris, I know it was you that came up with taking little logos and putting the logos. You can even do it through a copy machine on those little clear stickers, and putting them on the group X floor in certain areas 6 feet apart. And then possibly you charge as if that was small group training, and film the rest of it. And then what the people can do is they can access it through either another Zoom link that you send, or through some type of password protected Facebook page, so that people at home can still exercise. Emma, I also love the idea of making sure that you bring some classes outside. I just saw this at the beach the other day, where they were using parking spaces. Perfect, 6 feet apart, blaring music. Unfortunately, the police shut it down. I was like, what are they violating? You know, I don't know. Did they get high before they jumped around? I have no idea. You know, I guess High Impact has a new name now. But they were just exercising outside. But this, possibly talk to your landlord, talk to the neighbors, see if there's a part of the parking lot that you can ribbon off and make and use it for the outside facility. I think that that's a great thing to do. I need some help here also. Chris, I'm going to call on you. What about personal trainers? How are we going to kind of manage that, and also rein them in, because they've really gotten good at Zoom, and they're going to want to go to people's houses?
I still think it's most efficient to work at a facility where you can go easily back to back to back to back to back. And I think personal training by definition is personal. So it's going to be hard to replace that virtually. I mean, there will always be some people who are like, hey, I like this virtual thing. But for the most part, I think just like classes, people are going to want to get back to their trainers. So I think personal trainers have to understand that the actual cleanliness is important, but so is the perception of cleanliness. And I was talking to somebody the other day about going to Subway to get a sandwich. And what you see from the people that make the sandwiches, they walk up and they wash their hands in front of you. This thing's right behind. And then they put on the new pair of gloves. They go through the sandwich making, wrap it all up, take the gloves off, throw it away, repeat. So I think trainers need to take that mentality as well, where the clients come in, they see them wash their hands prior to putting them on equipment. They wipe it down for the client, wipe it down afterwards. Definitely being mindful of, I think probably the days, at least for now, of, hey, Emma, I'm going to take you through this wicked circuit with 5 different machines. You're going to have to train your staff, listen, that's just not going to work in the current state that we're in.
That's right.
I think also, telling them, hey, plan on using a certain area, right? So they're not bouncing all over the entire facility. But it's going to take a lot of training. And I think trainers, especially if you're on this call, you have to be understanding, because I know how passionate you'll get about your craft. And you're like, but this is the most effective circuit in the world. Well, what does effective mean? It means you can actually execute it and that there's benefit. So you can't be so stuck in your ways that you find yourself not practicing proper cleaning and social distancing and those sort of things. I think it's going to be really important.
A great programmer can do it anywhere, right?
Right.
Yeah. Hey, Sarah, I just wanted to double back, because I don't feel that we gave a comprehensive enough answer around digital. So I just got a couple of thoughts. There's been about 300,000 webinars on digital, but digital has had a seminal moment. And if you think about fitness offerings going forward, if you do not have a digital expression of your brand, someone else does. So if you look at the Pelotons or the more cheap echelons or the Mirrors, the Temples, the Toner, all of them together are in at least 3 to 5 to 6 times growth right now. Sales are just ridiculous. Les Mills went from 20 countries to 100 countries in 2 weeks. You know, like, it is out of control. So everyone's used to that, and there are some phenomenal offerings out there. I can train with Thor. I can train with any of the top trainers in the world. It is a big and it's a sexy offering. If your club doesn't have it, you will walk out of your bricks and mortar and you will join another one. You'll naturally be on another platform because everyone's doing such a good job. So just to fill out that, and I know you're sending out some notes after this, there are a whole heap of platforms that are relatively cheap. They're just like teaching platforms. They're softwares. They can, you know, API in the back of whatever you're using. But I would really ask you to look at this. So Zoom and Facebook and all these things, these are really like a Band-Aid over these times. In a month or two, people are going to start caring about quality at the moment. If I see one more inside of a garage, I mean, people are not going to stay with that till the end of the year. They're then going to want content as king again. So I would just urge you, see it as an ecosystem. And one of the big things that's been made by the digital companies is my experience in the club should be enhanced by my digital experience, as well as just when I'm at home or if I'm on holiday as well. So start thinking, and I know that there's budgetary constraints, but there's a whole raft of options that you can do. 2 other things that were really interesting: big upswing, obviously, in engagement by the digital and the connected fitness, but also many people just wanted Mikey from 6 o'clock on Monday, their Mikey. They wanted their community, even against all the big guys. So that's work on your community, use your teachers, use your personal trainers, you know, use them for educational pieces as you build out your digital. It doesn't just have to be classes. It can be, hey, I've got a great 10-minute section on back care by our resident personal trainer, John, who's, you know, got a PhD in whatever. So there's so many ways that you can add value. I just wanted to make that point because in everything that I'm seeing right now, if you don't do it, someone else is going to cut your lunch.
Yeah, I love that, especially. So here was a revelation I had the other day in talking with our fitness director. She had just conducted her first Zoom class with her senior group. So the youngest, 5 women, the youngest is 70 years old. They all got computers. They all were able to execute this class. And as I'm asking her, you know, I ask a lot of questions. As I'm asking her, like, how did it happen? What happened when they first came on? What did people talk about? I had this aha moment there, right? Like, there was a different job to be done by them. And the job to be done was get the exercise. The rest of the job to be done is those 5 women wanted to see each other's faces and say hi to each other. And I think this you know, all of you independent clubs out there, you have an incredible opportunity right now because a lot of the giant brands out there left the building, shut the breakers off. They don't have boots on the ground down there improving at the location level. You have a major opportunity to hyper localize what you're doing and make it all about local business. What our main approach is going to be, and I don't know if I'm right or not, we think so, is to do exactly what Emma was just talking about, you know, having the class even limited to the number of people that you can see on a screen at one time. That's how we're thinking about, you know, how do we compete with Peloton and how do we compete with, they can't compete with Barb wanted to say hi to her class during that time. And I think that is one of the ways that you can enhance the in-club experience. One more thing, I've said this a few times. I used to own a poker room and and bar. And what had happened was, so when online poker came out, everybody, oh my God, everybody's playing online poker. About a year into the online poker craze, every poker room in America was packed. And I mean, it did more to get people used to playing poker and willing to sit down at the intimidating environment of your first time sitting down at a poker table. So what we're seeing right now, and to both Chris and Emma's point about being flexible and watching the emergent data as soon as you can and determine what's happening out there. Think of the ways that video poker got people into poker rooms. There are principles that shall apply to this as well.
What's happened with SCW does live streaming certifications. We started doing it in October of last year. And we, several of my staff were really scared that the live stream would take over and it would really reduce the numbers of the live participants in the certifications. And it did exactly what you're saying happened in poker. Fitness, it translated, we actually not only increased our online certifications, our live stream certifications, it increased the live participation, because also people feel very uncomfortable at times walking into a facility. I can also turn my camera off, which is awesome. You don't have to see me exercising. Frankly, sometimes I don't want to see myself exercising. So this gives them that, makes them feel comfortable. And I totally agree with Emma. The teacher is queen or king. And that's a great thing. And there's a lot of connection going on. My yoga instructor, I keep bringing her up because she's just marvelous. During part of the class, she actually turns the camera off and she focuses on each individual student, and they get pinned on the screen. So I get to see Brad in his home. I get to see Susie with her dog on the couch, you know? I get to see them, and they're like making hearts and they're waving at each other, and I feel connected. So I think that that's a great thing to do. Somebody asked, I'll answer this real quickly about Spotify. Spotify is the same thing as playing that live music. You cannot record it and put it on. You can play it live, but you can't record it and put it on. Sharing Zoom links, if people are going to steal from you, they're going to steal from you. Don't even try to pretend that people don't sneak into the club. So they will sneak and share a Zoom. And the way I figure it, if you can't afford to exercise, steal from me, it's fine. I also got a question about aquatics. What do we do about the pool? Well, the beauty of the pool is, you know, you stink like chlorine. That's great. That's better than a mask and a pair of gloves combined. So the pool is a very safe environment to exercise in, but just keep the social distancing as well. Chris, I'm going to come back to you, and I'm going to ask you elaborate on one of the questions or share with us about like different software people can use, what other systems we can engage.
So let me look over at my notes. I think, Blair had kind of mentioned it earlier. I'm just looking at the new cleaning protocols question. I think facilities that have done, so first of all, customer experience is the most important thing, always has been, you know, the journey mapping and really making an experience, because I guarantee you clubs that provided a great experience going in built a high level of trust. So when you start to reopen, those clubs are going to be more successful. So it's always important to focus just in general on the best customer experience you have. And you do, you know, by doing the surveys on a regular basis in a variety of ways, you know, why guess what your members want when you can ask them and they're going to tell you, I think is really important. But even if you've built this high level of trust, I just think really focusing on communicating to your members what your expectations are from them, because your returning members might say, I trust that you guys are going to clean this. I trust that you'll put in the protocols, but I don't trust that all these other members around me are going to follow those protocols. So just really, you know, posting that publicly in a professional way so that your members see that we are asking all of you to do these steps to ensure that everybody is safe. And then, like we said before, making sure that your staff enforces it when they don't see those things happening. I think one other thing too is, you know, we've got to police the behaviors of the members, but it should also be posted that if as a member you see somebody who's not following protocol, to let us know and we will handle it for them. Now, that doesn't mean members will do that. Members are still going to complain to each other and yell at each other and try to do that. But it gives you the opportunity to then approach a member and say, hey, we do, you know, we will handle this behavior, but you're going to have some of those cranky members who are paranoid and scared. And if you're posting, hey, bring issues to us, and you let members know that, then it gives you the right to go back to the member who doesn't and say, hey, we told you guys, bring this stuff to us, and please let our, brother, what was your term, ambassador? Your compliance ambassador?
Compliance ambassadors.
Yeah. So let our compliance ambassadors handle that. So that'll give you you know, hey, we told you don't do that. So it allows you to also correct the members that who maybe doing this stuff the right way, but are hassling other members about it.
I'm going to show you guys something real quick. SCW, we created a couple documents for you guys to have. We created a reopening your facility, just a nice Word document, regularly sanitizing and cleaning, assign all staff to pitch in, set requirements for staff upon entry of the facility, adhering to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control on social distancing and cleanliness. All a bunch of topics that we've heard from these wonderful presenters. We also put it in an Excel chart for you guys so that facility and sanitizing, requirements for staff opening. You can use this Excel chart, which is, it's really pretty simple to use. Type in what staff is responsible, when the due date is for completion, and when the date is that it was completed, so the supervisor could fill this in. And this way, if you have a conference call, let's say you do it through GoToMeeting or you do it through Zoom, however you have your staff meetings, or Skype, you go in and you actually have the staff raise their hand and say, I'll do this, I'll do that, and have them provide you their own due date, and then you can see the date of completion. And this, we will post these documents for you when we'll send tomorrow afternoon after the recording has been completed. We will post these documents to you in their raw form. So you'll have them in a Word doc so you can edit them yourself. They won't be a PDF. And you'll have it in the Excel chart so you can actually fill it in yourself. I'll be honest with you, Blair, we forgot to put in training scripts. We didn't put in compliance ambassador. So you guys at home, put that stuff in. Blair, you were going to say something?
Well, I'm reading a couple of comments here, and one person's asking about where to get the surveys. If you go to mxmetrics.com and just register there, we'll get you set up. And the other one, I want to read the comment, and then I want to comment on this. I disagree with everyone trying to change what we do. I think the fears are by and large baseless. The data tells us this. So initially, we need to be calm and educate and establish better cleaning habits. Clean is always good and should be part of your brand. I could not agree more that clean should be part of the brand. The fact is, it's not a part of most people. Most people score very poorly through the customer's eyes. And I want to talk about the data, what the data tells us. You're not clean unless the customer tells you you're clean. You're not friendly unless the customer tells you you're friendly. We can believe we're clean. We can believe we follow best practices, but unless the customer says so, the person that's actually putting the money in our account, then we're not. And customer data will tell us right now that the customers have a lot of expectations and fears around this. So there's multiple stakeholders that you have to balance. Your local community, your team, your members, and what they're thinking right now. Because we can let the members educate us, or we can work super hard to educate the members, and they may just push back on that. I think it should be a bit of both. But your members have expectations and fears right now, and if those aren't met, then they'll go someplace that they trust will meet those.
And Blair, I love that. I'm gonna let that be your closing remark because we're getting it at 5:45. And Chris, give us your last piece of wisdom, please.
So what I think is, in just watching the chat go by, there are so many questions, and obviously there's only so much you can do in a 45-minute, webinar. But I think it's just continue to reach out for support. So those of you who have questions that maybe didn't get answered exactly, you've got our emails, our contact info. Reach out for support during this time. It's one of those odd times in the industry where nobody's a competitor. We're all working together. It's about competing against COVID and getting our industry back up and running, and then we can go ahead and compete with each other again. But just don't hesitate to reach out for support. We're all here to help, and And yeah, so just reach out for support.
I really like that. I really appreciate it. I hope everybody who's listening realizes that these three people are part of our live stream mania convention that we're doing at the end of May. So I have to put in a shameless plug because I can't keep my business going. I mean, we had to cancel 2 conferences. The clubs, all the clubs' doors are closed. I mean, it's a crazy time we live in. But these 3 wonderful people are going to be doing presentations for us at Live Stream Mania, giving us an hour and 15 minutes of their individual thoughts on these items. We've also reduced the cost of Live Stream Mania. It's typically $259. It's $100 off. It's $159. There are also 150 classes going on, 60 different presenters. And once you get your Zoom link to get into the conference, you can go anywhere you want. Everybody gets their first choice selection. So on that note, Emma, take us away.
Sure, I would just say no one knows what's happening. And I would just say ask the right questions. Everyone ask your staff, send staff surveys, send member surveys. You will be surprised and delighted at what comes back. I can't tell you how many people have reversed their decisions based on what their people have told them, based on what they're going through right now. If you're sitting there in fear, it's because you're not doing anything about it. So first thing you do is ask questions. Guys, tell me what you're thinking. Staff, who feels comfortable coming back to work? I don't, because I've got a sick child at home, for example. Now you know that. What would you feel comfortable doing? So ask people. We're all in this together, and you've got a whole host of people who can help you here on this call and all in the whole community. So thanks, Sarah, for the mania. I can't believe how many sessions are on there. It's going to be absolutely incredible. So thanks for having us. I've also dropped my details in there if you have any specifics around what I know a few things about.
All right, wonderful. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank all of you for showing up. The recording will be available tomorrow later in the afternoon, and both of those documents will be downloadable, easy for you to use. Thank you, Blair. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, Sean Senegan and Anna Buddha-Cavalli. Thank you guys for running this webinar for us. I wish you all safe harbor during physical distancing. I know, physical distancing. And I love these webinars because I just feel like we're all connected again for some weird reason. So thank you all. Be safe.
Thank you, guys.